everybody, and my name is Milo. I'm here to do a random video that no one asked for. I recently have seen the Backrooms movie, and I wanted to talk about it since, everyone else happens to be talking about it. No, this video does not happen to be scripted. Actually, I'm just randomly riffing it off and deciding to do it. In the background, you'll see Power Wash Simulator, as I don't really know how to edit, but I can slap an audio clip on top of a media clip. And I don't think this video will be too long, because I don't want to suffer listening to my voice more than I should, so I don't want to put you guys through that as well. No, usual YouTuber babble. If you like whatever you see in this video, feel free to like and subscribe and comment if you want me to comment on, I said comment twice, but comment under this video if you want me to talk about any other movies or TV shows or even video game. Any sort of media that you would think you would want my opinion on. So for some context, I have been a fan of the Backrooms since about 2020, 2021, around when it really got popular. I knew of it. I was more into SCP at the time, though, which is a very similar concept, actually. But I only really gotten into specifically the Backrooms and mostly the lore wiki around 2024, back when YouTubers suddenly started talking about it all the time, and it got into the spaces of the SCP Foundation fandom as well. So when I found Kane Pixels, who directed the movie, it was actually pretty late. But it was also around the time when it was announced that he would be directing the Backrooms movie, which for me was a really big thing. I never really was a movie person, and I didn't have really any of my fandoms that I personally liked as a movie. R.I.P. FNAF movie. That was a good movie, but critics be damned. But anyways, so it happened to come out on my anniversary with my boyfriend, and we decided, hey, it would be a great time to go see the Backrooms movie for our anniversary, since it's the day that it comes out. And so we went. It was fun. I enjoyed it. He enjoyed it. And apparently the crowd that was at the movies also enjoyed it. So if you really wanted to know if the Backrooms movie was good, yes, it is a good movie. Kane Pixels is a really good director. He knows how to direct good. The actors, of course, know how to act good. It was a pretty good cast. The music was phenomenal. The Backrooms looked real. And I'm really proud of Kane. If you didn't know, Kane Pixels currently is about 21 years old now. That is my age. I am 20. And it's really inspiring to see someone my age do something so awesome and great. And it's such a big opening night. Like, the theater was almost packed, and I don't live in a town where many people are interested in that type of media. So the fact that so many people came to see this movie made by a 20-year-old kid, I'm using kid very lightly, is astonishing and very inspiring for young filmmakers who want to go and attempt to make movies. And it's really good and is opening up a new era of movie making and horror films and filmmaking as a whole, especially right after the heels of Markiplier's Iron Lung and before Jacksepticeye's movie as well, which are also YouTubers that I quite enjoy, just like King Pixels. So, all of that yapping to say, very great movie. It is not a perfect movie. No movie will ever be perfect. As Moist Critical stated in his video, good movie, great movie even, but it's not perfect. And I wasn't expecting perfection when I went into it. So with all that being said, I'm going to jump slightly more into spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen it and you really want to see it, please don't watch any further. So, what I really want to start with is the ending, which is a really weird thing to start with, the end, but that's the main thing that stuck with me, was how abrupt it ended. If you watched the movie on opening night, or today, or you didn't watch the movie and you were just wanting to watch this because it came on your feed and you don't care about spoilers, I will say what the ending is. So, after Mary, who is Clark's therapist, evades Clark's still life, which is a type of monster, she gets rescued by Async. And while being interviewed by one of the doctors there, it slowly shows us how the Backrooms remembers and doesn't remember things by warping very similar places and stuff that we had seen previously in the movie, like Mary's old home, or a shopping center, or Clark's furniture store. And at the very end, we see Mary's still life in a very similar position that she was in when she was being interviewed by the async researcher. It's chilling. It is so weird looking at these still lives. It is like looking at an AI generated picture where her face is similar but not. Her hands are multiplied. She's wearing the same clothes that she escaped the backrooms with, but everything seems wrong. And as Kane has previously shown in the rest of the movie, that is what still lives are, misremembering of people. But personally, and something that is shared among people who exited the Backrooms movie with me, is that it felt like it ended a bit too early. Like, it had more to say. Like, it could have continued for maybe like a good another 20-30 minutes, like in the middle or at the end mostly, because it felt like we were left with so many questions and it was incomplete in a way, but not in a bad way. If I would really have to say, I didn't fully mind the fact that it wasn't complete at the end. I actually made me excited for the prospect of a second movie. And so it's a weird middle ground that I'm stuck in where I'm excited to think that there's going to be a second movie, but I'm also a little sad that it ended so soon. But regardless of that, I had a very good experience. Um, Next thing I want to talk about is the side characters, mostly Kat and Bobby. I really love Kat and Bobby. Their actors did a pretty good job at depicting normal people and forced into a situation from their crazy boss and being a perfect mix of curious but concerned and confused. The only issue that I really had is we didn't get a lot of screen time for them. So when they ended up dying at the end, I didn't actually feel too bad about it. Like, I didn't fully miss them. Um, they kind of were just introduced and there as a means for Clark to get the camera. And then when Clark had the camera, it seemed like they weren't needed anymore, and that's why they were killed off so fast. Though, going back in Kane's web series, which it is connected to, Kane said it himself, people dying suddenly is also just a common thing within the backrooms. It is just they just will randomly die suddenly. But I really wished that we had more time to spend with Kat and Bobby, just so we can fully understand them as a character. So when they did die, it didn't feel like you had to bump them off for the sake of the plot, and more of these were characters with a real life, with real weight behind them, who tragically lost their lives, like Mary and Clark did. I understand that Mary and Clark are the main characters, but it felt like the world revolved around them, not that they were living in the world, which is a bit of an issue for me, but did not take away from the experience. They could have just died because they didn't have enough time to flesh them out. It, they probably had a bunch of cutscenes. I don't know. But if they did, then I might make another video reviewing the cut content. Whatever. Speaking about Clark and Mary, I love them so much. And I love that the complex drove Clark crazy. It's not something that I was prepared to have happen, given how much people have been talking around the movie and the fact that a lot of people wanted it to be a psychological thriller. I was expecting a little bit of a psychological thriller. I'm going to be completely honest. But having the dinner scene with the still lifes, Clark and Mary, was genuinely so uncomfortable in the best ways possible. It is hard to physically explain, and their anger felt raw and understandable. Like, Clark genuinely was at the end of his rope, and Mary felt like she was watching someone drown and refusing her help. Like, they both were in distress. And I loved it. It felt real, it felt raw, it felt natural in a way. And it made sense. Clark spends the whole first half of the movie struggling with himself, struggling to understand himself and find his place in the world and where he belongs. And finally, in this place that doesn't make sense, everything makes sense for him. And that felt like the proper direction to go with someone like Clark. And Mary being a therapist with her own trauma and struggling to deal with said trauma is also a really good way of altering the archetype of a therapist in a horror movie. Usually, therapists in horror movies typically are people who are there to doubt the main character or trick the main character into believing something that isn't right, or trying to get them to completely negate a part of them for whatever reason. But Mary going about the way she goes about things because of her own trauma, and then well, not fully, but realizing how much her trauma messed her up because of her mom, felt like a real character. And I really wish that we could have seen more flashbacks of Clark's backstory, like we saw flashbacks of Mary's backstory. That would have been so awesome. And so, that would lead me to the last topic I really want to critique. Well, not really critique, but just talk about, is the still lifes. I loved how AI they felt, how incorrect but correct they looked. Because if you squinted at them, they could look like normal people. Just like someone that you'll see on the side of the road. If you saw them walk by on the street in a crowd, you wouldn't think twice about it. But staring at them, there's something innately wrong. Just like how the Backrooms is in general. I just love that concept of something wrong. Like they were made for the Backrooms. You being there, looking at your own still life, means that you're in the wrong place. Same if you actually saw the still lifes in real life, you would notice that they are in the wrong place. It doesn't feel like they are just strange to be strange. It feels like, in combination with the Backrooms itself, you don't belong here. Like you're the thing that's out of place, not the still lives. The still lives make perfect sense within the Backrooms. And Clark's still life being not only big and imposing, but aggressive, unlike all the other still lives, makes so much more sense. My interpretation is the still life seem to be how other people or you yourself subconsciously would view yourself or other people. Like the redhead still life that was at the dinner with Clark. She kind of just stood there. She was docile. She didn't seem to listen to Clark, but when Clark's still life showed up, she would try to run away in fear. And that felt like how Clark viewed his ex-wife. Someone who just sat around, didn't listen, and when stuff got heavy, she would try to run away from it. And Clark's still life was big and imposing and threatening, and at first he seems docile, and at next he's capable of violence, which could be how either Mary or Clark himself subconsciously sees Clark as a threat that could switch on a dime. And that's very interesting given that this movie seems to delve so deep into psychology and how others see you and how you see yourself. Part of me really wished that we could have seen Kate and Bobby still live. That could have fleshed them out a bit more and be like, hey, maybe Bobby's still life is so curious to the point where he would try to mutilate people or kidnap people in order to study them. Like how Bobby was so curious about the backrooms, he kind of ignored Kat's worries about the backrooms. He was so ready to just jump in because Clark said it was fine. So maybe Bobby's still life could have been someone so curious, following behind Clark's still life like a curious little dog, willing to also do whatever Clark asked, even if it was violent. Or Cat still life could be weary and anxious, like skittering around, hiding behind corners, peeking around to look at Mary and Clark. Like how she was so anxious and so nervous when going into the back rooms and exploring it with Clark. A lot more cautious than the other two. It could have shown them to their extremes, like how Clark's still life is. And I wish, of course, at the end again, we saw a little bit more of Mary's still life, since she seems docile. She's kind of just sitting there. What if we saw how she would actually behave as the still life, so we could explore more about the still lives and the horror aspect? I know I said I was gonna end on the still lives, but hear me out. The horror in it seems a bit died down, especially for a rated R movie. And I know that it's mostly a rated R movie because of all the swearing. So many F bombs, and then a movie will immediately become a rated R movie. So that's probably why that it had a rating R rating. But you know you're probably gonna get the rating. I feel like they should have delved deeper into the horror aspect. Like show off dead bodies and corpses like in Kane Pixel's original series when they found the John Doe and they did an autopsy report. that would have been really cool. Or they could have found the dead bodies of Clark, Kat, and Bobby in Async. Instead of Mary passing by Clark's still life, they could have passed by them doing autopsies on the three friends that she knew and being horrified with how mangled their corpses are or infected with bacteria if the bacteria is still a thing in the movie. And that could have also opened up more things for a sequel. All in all, I really hope that Kane has a sequel movie. And I really hope that Mary shows up in the web series, or if Clark somehow survived, or if Kat somehow survived, and they show up in the web series. That would be interesting too. Or if they set Clark's still life back into the complex, I would like to see his still life, or any of the other still lives. That would be really interesting. And I think Kane has a really bright future ahead of him. And I really hope this really changes the industry for the better and opens more doors for young filmmakers in both IRL media, TV shows, and animated media. And I feel like this is a really big turning point for movie genres as a whole. Well, that's really all I have to say about the Backrooms movie. If you think I missed any points or got anything wrong, comment down below and let me know. Anyways, this has been my video. I was your friend Milo, and I really hope that this first video that you've watched is a banger, and I hope it leads you to subscribe and like so I feel motivated to make more content. I really like talking about things that inspire me or I like, so I might make more videos about content that I like. If you want to hear more about things I like from me, subscribe. And I'm sorry I keep telling you to subscribe, but yeah, I hope you have a great day, my friends.